Six Nations 2021 round 2 continues, week 2 before the week off, so it's a big one for these two teams, Italy and England. Probably in the scheme of things, this is a bigger weekend for England, but that's not to say Italy still don't have a point to prove. So England, no wins and a loss, 5th overall on the log, but they're pretty much even with Ireland. I think it's just they scored one try less than Ireland. They didn't score any in their game against Scotland last week. They certainly need to get a win for the Six Nations itself, the championship, and also, I guess, just in terms of performance levels, they need to be better than last week, because last week it's just one of the worst performances you've seen from England in quite some time. It's a good chance for them to get back on track against Italy. I'll go over their squad in just a sec. They haven't made a heck of a lot of changes, but there are some changes. For Italy, like I mentioned, you could say, look, last 5 results, 5-0 to England. Last result was 34-5. Before that was 37-0. Like, the average over the last 5 games is 42-10. So Italy have been on the wrong end of some pretty big scores against England. But they got beaten at home 50 points to 10 last week. So there's certainly a point to prove, if not in winning the game, but at least improving a bit on their own end as well. They certainly showed flashes of what they can do at times. It's just a bit of inconsistency, too many errors. And trying to compete hard for the full 80 seems to be one they struggle with. But in terms of the championship itself, England big time could use a big result. Maybe this is the perfect one to get that done. Yeah, I'll put the squads in the description so you guys can have a look. But England squad, they've brought back Mako, Vunipola and Sinckler, and they immediately get starting jobs in the front row. Luca Cowan-Dickie also gets the start this week, so he's jumped up from the bench. It means Jamie George, Ellis, Genge and Will Stuart are dropped to the bench. It also means no Albano this week, and there's a few other guys who've been dropped from the 23 entirely. Harry Williams is gone as well. The second row sees Maro, Itoje and Jonny continue on, so no changes there. It was interesting, Maro's performance last week, because some people said he was the only good player on that England team that were poor, and other people said, man, wasn't Maro rubbish compared to his usual self. So it's kind of one where you can't win them all. He was certainly good at times, probably conceded a few too many penalties, but he was certainly giving Ali Price a bit of a hard time early. Courtney Laws jumps up from the bench to take on the blindside flank role, number 6 jersey. Tom Curry's there at 7, and Billy Vunipola continues on at 8. Billy V could certainly use a big game, because you guys in England have got tons of good guys who can play number 8, and Billy V didn't exactly, you guys didn't have much ball if you're an England fan, but he didn't exactly shower himself with glory last week. We know he's a good player. Just needs a good shift. Should have more ball than last week, so we'll see what he can do. Curry, likewise, at the breakdown, will look to make himself a bit more of a menace than last week. Did he get any turnovers last week? It was just the one. And Laws is always going to be criticised whenever they play him at blindside. A lot of people don't like him there. I still reckon he can do a job, because at line-out time, he is a proper threat. He's very disruptive, and he's an extra man to throw to. And his numbers around the park are very good, but I know you guys have got a lot of specialists like flankers that lose out at the price of playing a lock loose forward there for England. But anyway, that's the front. The 4-pack. Sorry, and certainly a bit of experience. Maybe too much experience, but anyway. Ben Youngs continues on at 9. George Ford jumps up from the bench to start this week, which means Farrell moves to 12. His moving to 12 means Ollie Lawrence is out of the 23 entirely. Slade still at 13. May and Watson are still on the wings, and Daly is there at fullback. The bench is Ewels, who comes into the squad. Earl, Willis, Robson and Malins. There's no Mark Wilson this week. He is out of the match day 23. Ollie Lawrence, as I mentioned. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, because I'm kind of torn. No disrespect to Italy, but a lot of teams use the Italy game as a chance to kind of make some changes, to blood some other guys. And that's kind of good for Italy as well, because they're still playing top-level opposition, but maybe it's a bit of a chance for them to sneak through as they develop their own players. But there's not that many games to go at test level before the next Rugby World Cup, believe it or not, even though it's still a couple of years away. So part of me thinks, man, Eddie, you needed to stick with the likes of Lawrence, and you needed to give Harry Randall a crack. Yeah, but it's not happened. It's kind of a similar lineup, but with some of the bigger guns back and going back to the Ford Farrell combo. I can also kind of understand it because last week was poor and there was a bit of rust, so maybe Eddie is hoping these guys use this week to shake the rust off with a mind on the next game rather than putting these guys in for a week, having a poor performance, and then getting them to dwell on that poor performance for 2 weeks before throwing them back into the Lions' den. I don't know. I certainly would have liked to see a bit more variation, but then again, Eddie Jones has certainly got a much more successful rugby coaching career than I do, so we'll go with what his picks are. For Italy, kind of minimal changes. Zanon's out, which is unfortunate. It means Brex moves from 12 to 13. Carlo Canna comes up from the bench and gets to start at the 12 jersey, which is kind of how we expected them to line up. Brex at 12 was Zanon at 13 was a bit of a left field one because Franco Smith has liked to play Garbisi with Canna outside him, the young guy with the experienced guys, the dual playmaker thing, so he's got two guys who can kick when they get in trouble. But man, Garbisi is really starting to hold his own in that number 10 jersey. He was outstanding last week, and I thought so, and thankfully a lot of people also saw the same thing, which means I was watching the same game as everybody else. And like I mentioned with Maro, Itoje, that doesn't always happen. People can watch the same game and come to different conclusions. The rest of the squad is still Lavotti, Bigi, and Ricconi. It'll be interesting to see if he still pulls the props early like he did last week. I thought it was a response rather than a planned move, but I've seen like Squidge thought it was a planned move, so he may well be right. It'll be interesting to see if they do that again. Lazzaroni and Cici are your locks. Negri, Maya, and Lamaro your Lucy's. If you haven't been following the Italians, they're without the likes of Bramstein and Jake Pelledri for the Six Nations campaign, which is unfortunate. But again, these guys, they did all right last week. But I'll get to their stats in a tick for the team. Varney and Garbisi is an exciting 19 combo. Now, I know everything last week was about Dupont, but Varney was pretty good. Lively, him and Garbisi keep the defenses on their toes, which is what you want to see. I mentioned the midfield for Italy. Sperandio, who scored a magic individual try last week, and Ioane. He's good. I'll get to his stats. I wrote some of his down. And Trulla is the fullback. So it's still a pretty young side. It's more experience with Canna getting a start. The bench is Lucchesi, Fischetti, Zelocchi, Canoni, Ruzza, Palazzani, Allen, and Mori. So Allen comes into the squad, and it means that this week it's a 5-3 split rather than 6-2. So England have gone 6-2. I forgot to mention that earlier. They've brought in Jack Willis. Italy went 6-2 last week, but they've reverted to 5-3, which is an interesting one. I would have thought maybe against the big English pack with the likes of the Vunipola brothers, but extra size with Courtney Laws, I thought they might have wanted to go an extra forward, but there's no Mbanda this week for Italy. So those are the squads. I mentioned some stats. Italy's tackling stats last week, I mean, they shipped 50 points, so they're not pretty reading. 68%, so they need a big improvement in that area. It's an area where they get let down too often. Italy had plenty of carries in their game against France, so they can attack a wee bit. They got plenty of run meters. So like I mentioned, they can be an attacking threat, especially with the likes of Garbisi running the show. But they were the number one side in the Six Nations last week for handling errors with 16 handling errors. The next worst was 11. So Italy's hands really, really let them down last week. Really, really poor. If they can cut out those errors, it'll be certainly a better showing. England will certainly need more ball than they did last week. They only had like 38% possession. They had no line breaks, but you can't really get line breaks unless you've got possession. In terms of individuals, Ioane, like I mentioned, he was number 2 for run meters in the Six Nations overall competition stats last week, individual, and Brex was 3rd, Garbisi was 5th. So like I mentioned, they had a bunch of their backs who were finding some space. Even if they didn't really convert all those opportunities into tries, they were getting the first part of it done. I know for England, Jonny Hill got a fair bit of stick, but the dude made like 20 tackles last week. He doesn't do much with ball in hand, which is maybe why he does cop a fair bit. But anyway, yeah, those are the squads. the predictions for this one as the sun is going to set. You can see it streaming through the windows here. England by 33 points is what Rugby Forecast algorithm has them winning by. And the bookies say England by 37. So they even go one step further. If the Italian defence can hold up a bit better, they may not ship that many points. Like I mentioned, the average is 42-10. So an average of 32 points. I think if Italy can keep them below 40 points like they did last time when it was 34-5, they're doing pretty well. And if everything clicks, man, in sports you never know, but it seems very, very unlikely. Eddie Jones will look in for a big bounce back performance this week, and this maybe will get England's Six Nations campaign back on track. Either way, we'll see what happens. It's on at 2:15 GMT, which makes it 3:15 in the morning over here. Probably not going to watch this one live. Probably go with the one after it. But we will see if I'm, for some reason, awake. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts on this one. How do you think it is going to go? Do you see England just kind of mopping the floor? Would you have liked to seen a more varied lineup? Or do you think Eddie's done the right thing by trying to get the leading guys back on form after a poor showing last week? And the Italians, do you back them to cut the errors down, increase their defence, and maybe get within how many points of England? 20? 10? What would be considered a good margin for Italy, do you reckon? Anyway, you guys have any thoughts? Talk to you again soon. See you later. Remember, guys, if you are looking to watch this week's Six Nations games, or you want to watch last week's games, you can do so on ITV or BBC's iPlayer for free. If you're in the UK. If you're outside the UK like me, the best way to get that done is with a VPN. I am on ExpressVPN here. You can see I'm connected to one of the servers in the UK, so I'm able to jump on ITV's hub, browse to rugby. This is the upcoming game. That one is England against Italy. That's on this Saturday. And this is last week's game. England, Scotland, so you can see it's all listed here. They've got it for, I don't know, like another 20 odd days. You can watch the ones on ITV. And for BBC iPlayer, it's pretty much the same deal. They got a split. Half the games are on one, half the games are on the other. They really seem to be promoting RuPaul's Drag Race a lot, though. But, you know, categories go into sport, and then this is last week's game, Wales against Ireland, right? So, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Scotland, Wales is on the BBC. England and Italy is on ITV. Like I said, I'll put the link in the description for Express. That's the one that I've been using. 30-day money-back guarantee. 3 months free if you sign up for a year. All that kind of jazz. Give it a crack. And, yeah, watch some rugby this weekend, guys. Talk to you again soon. See you later.